After missing the 1968 season to protest the changes to Group 4 and returning in 1969 with the 312P, Ferrari saw what Porsche had done with the 917 and decided they could do the same. Enzo, who, let's not forget, had spurned Ford only 5 years prior, finally sold off the production portion of Ferrari to Fiat. With the capital in hand, he put that towards building the 25 units required for Group 4 homologation of the Ferrari 512. 5 litres, 12 cylinders, 404 kilowatts of power. Unfortunately, the brand new 60-degree V12 didn't quite have the same outright prowess as the flat 12 of the Porsche, and the heavier steel tube chassis was over 100 kilos heavier than the German counterpart. The car was homologated in January 1970, just days before the 24 Hours of Daytona, with the FIA accepting 8 assembly kits as fully fledged units, which wasn't allowed for the 917. Coming up against the brand new 917K at Daytona was always going to be a challenge, but the debut race for the 512S almost couldn't have gone worse. Of the 5 entered cars, only 1 finished. While Mario Andretti, Arturo Mazzario and Jackie Ickx managed 3rd place, they were almost 50 laps behind the winning Porsche. The second race fared much better, in what has gone down as one of the best editions of the Sebring 12 Hours in history. With both Porsche and Ferrari suffering suspension and wheel hub problems thanks to the brutal Sebring surface, it was looking like a late victory for the Porsche of Rodriguez, Kinnunen and Seifert, until a hub failure in the last 13 minutes opened the door for the solo productions Porsche of Peter Revson and Steve McQueen in the 908-02. A late charge from Mario Andretti saw the number 21 512S take the lead before diving in for fuel right at the end of the race. On the final lap, Andretti reeled in Revson, returning to the lead and with it taking the win for Ferrari. It was the only 512 to finish the race. It would be the one bright spot in the 1970 season for Ferrari, who suffered a number of disappointing races and near misses throughout the season. They were comprehensively schooled at Brands Hatch, finishing 10 laps down and behind the 3-litre leader in the wet, before just missing out on the win at home at Monza. They were once again beaten by the 3-litre cars at the Targa Florio, before another tight loss at Spa-Francorchamps. They were defeated by the 3-litre cars at the Nürburgring Nordschleife once more, confirming the manufacturer's championship for Porsche. Then came Le Mans, billed as a Porsche versus Ferrari dogfight. Ferrari brought along 11 of the new 512Ss in the hands of factory team and privateer entries, going up against 7 of the 917 machines. Ultimately, it was a disaster for Ferrari. The only finishers in the 512 were privateers, with the number 11 North America Racing Team missing the podium, finishing 40 laps down, and the number 12 Écurie Francorchamps car finishing a further 8 laps back. The factory team was left embarrassed, with all 4 cars out before half distance. The Nino Vaccarella car broke its crankshaft on lap 7 before 4 of the 512s, including 2 of the remaining factory cars, were eliminated in a single incident. Slowing down as the rain started to fall, Rain Weissel was collected by Clay Regazzoni, then Mike Parks, on the entry to Maison Blanche. Derek Bell, on debut, managed to swerve and avoid the incident, crunching down the gears, blowing his engine half a lap later as a result of the over-rev. That left the sole serious challenger to the Porsches in Jackie Ickx's hands, who was impressively charging through the field in the wet. Just after midnight though, Ickx's brakes failed heading into the Florida chicanes, sending him over a sandbank and bursting into flame, bringing an end to any hope of Ferrari winning the race. The 512 finished the 1970 season strong, with a win at the non-championship event at the 9 Hours of Kyalami. But with a 5-litre loophole closing for the 1972 season, Ferrari abandoned the 512 as a platform in favour of a new 3-litre prototype. The 512 continued in the hands of privateers, but going up against the factory backing of Porsche and the 3-litre strength of the Alfa Romeo's Tipo 33/3, results were few and far between. The NART car managed to improve on their results from the previous year's Le Mans in 1971 to take a podium finish, but were again over 30 laps away from victory. The car had a brief spell in the hands of Penske in Can-Am before becoming obsolete for the 1972 season. Ferrari would campaign the 312 PB for the 72 season, choosing to skip Le Mans to maintain a 100% winning record, before abandoning sports cars entirely in favour of F1 in 1973. The 512S was a short-lived, unfortunate failure for Ferrari, and while the car was competitive, it never achieved the results in the tight finishes up against the Porsche 917. Despite that, the 512 still holds the last overall podium finish for Ferrari at Le Mans, who are still the third most successful brand around the French circuit. Time will tell if that record continues beyond 2022, when Ferrari returns to the top class of endurance racing once more in 2023.